Hello and welcome to Your Employment Matters. I'm Beverly Williams and I'm here to help you navigate your career. This is for anyone who's searching for their dream job or promotion, or perhaps you're just looking to hang on to the job you have. Today's work environments are multi-generational, multi-religious, multinational, multiracial, and multi-gender identity. Add market disruptors like Amazon and Lyft, along with the addition of AI, and it's easy to see why finding and keeping a job is such a challenge. Employment success and even employment survival depend on your ability to adapt. That's why my goal for this 30-minute podcast is to first advocate embracing change and differences, and second, to encourage you to proactively assume responsibility for your career. Get your work week off to a good start by listening to Your Employment Matters every Monday. Find out how to own your career and get the best practices for making your employment matter. Today, workplaces are multi-generational, multi-religious, multinational, multiracial, and multi-gender and sexual expression. Similarly, the new employment reality is also multi. It's multifaceted and constantly changing. The acceptance of and respect for coworkers that may have different levels of abilities and disabilities, religions, races, nationalities, and sexual or gender orientation and expression is essential. Furthermore, employment success, and I mean your employment success, depends on your ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face and embrace the challenge of change. The recovery from the current public health crisis and our shattered economy will not only be gradual and perhaps painful, there may not be a return to the normalcy we previously enjoyed. So, in the new multi employment reality, my advice is for you to nail it. And by that, I mean, beginning with N, network with people of all walks of life, cultures, nationalities, and beliefs to maximize the likelihood that you will achieve favorable employment results. A is for accept feedback. Accept feedback, whatever the source. Accept it as a gift. Don't be thin skinned about input received from someone you don't like, especially if you don't like them because they're different. Never dismiss feedback cavalierly. I is for invest. Invest your time, money, and energy in yourself. Don't invest in trying to stand in the way of change at work or in your social or community organization. Resistance to change is your enemy. L is learn as much as you can about all you can. One of the benefits of working in a multi environment is that there are so many opportunities to learn something new because everyone brings something unique to the discussion. I is also improve your skill set, which includes the ability to communicate in writing and orally. Acquire training and education by taking advantage of free or low cost offerings, or if you're employed, employer compensated training. Finally, T is for tenacity. Tenacity is your friend. Whatever goals you set, put in the effort. Don't give up. Press on. View rejection as a form of feedback and use it to your advantage. Find a way to make lemons out of lemonade. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., minister, social activist, and civil rights leader, one of the greatest liabilities of history is that too many people fail to remain awake during great periods of social change. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent who are notorious for sleeping through revolution. Today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. Today, My guest is engineer Rodney Abrams. Mr. Abrams is a public employee who has a Bachelor of Science degree from Penn State, a Master of Science degree in Management from Thomas Edison State College, and a Master's degree in Strategic Studies from the United States Army War College. Welcome, Mr. Abrams. Thank you for joining us today. Do you mind if I call you Rodney?
Oh, no, I don't mind, Beverly. If you don't mind if I call you Beverly.
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay, great.
Rodney, how long have you been working in the government?
Okay, Beverly, before we get to I just wanted to say, hey, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. And I think it's extremely valuable, the information that's being put out with your podcast. So I would say, you only know what you know, and the information that's being put out there, hopefully can help others as they pursue their career journey. So,
yes, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, because it is a journey for all of us.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yes. And so to answer the first question, my journey, I've been working with the federal government for 28 years as a civilian employee, working for 3 agencies during that time. The Army Corps of Engineers, which recently with the COVID-19, people probably heard about them in the press, building the alternative care facilities. I worked there about 15 years. And then with the Washington Headquarters Services at the Pentagon for about 4 years. And then in my current position with the Department of Public Works for the United States Army Reserve. So parallel to that, I have 28 years as an engineer officer in the United States Army Reserve. So currently a colonel in the Army Reserves.
You're a busy man.
A little busy.
Well, when we were talking before we began recording, you told me about a new opportunity, a new role that you've assumed, a new opportunity for you. You want to talk about that too, now that you've expanded your reach?
Yes. Well, prior to our conversation, I was just talking with one of the new people that's going to be part of my team out in California. I just found out I got selected for they call it a command position, so it's a position that give me an opportunity to lead more soldiers at a higher level, which is a brigade level command, and that's going to be out in California. It's going to cover an area of Texas, Arizona, and Arkansas. So, I look forward to that opportunity to be able to get out there and work with those soldiers out there.
So, Rodney, why did you choose employment in the public sector rather than in the corporate arena or even in the nonprofit organization?
Okay, what's interesting, actually, when I graduated from college, I went to work actually for 4 years in the private industry for an engineering consulting firm in New York City. Where I was a entry-level structural engineer working on infrastructure projects out in the field. Basically, with the exception of me joining the military, which I had always had an interest in, I went to work there and is interested through a networking event through the Society of Black Engineers. It was a networking event, and I met some people there who worked for the Corps, and I mentioned to them that I interned at the Corps during the summer, previous summers, and there was actually an opportunity where I thought that was challenging for me to continue to hone my engineering and actually leadership skills. I'm working with the Corps, and I wanted to get more into more structural design, so that's how I ended up in the Corps of Engineers, where I worked from 1992 until 2015. That's how I started working for the Corps of Engineers. It started actually my public service career. It was really out of my desire to perform engineering for the design of buildings and other infrastructure. The opportunity existed there, and then I had went for it. And that's a key point that I do want to make at this point in this interview, is for those who are listening, always go to work. Always go to work when you have an interest. When you think about the amount of time that we spend at work, getting ready for work, and then winding down from work, at this stage of my life, I say, do what you have an interest in. It definitely will give you a more fulfilling and satisfying life. That's in my opinion. But with respect to the nonprofits, at that time, I guess even now, there are very few, if any, nonprofits that's engaged in designing bridges and buildings. Granted, we have some great organizations like Habitat of the Humanities that does a great job of building homes for families and people need a house.
So you found your career rewarding. I can tell from the way you described it that it's giving you what you needed and what you wanted.
Yes,
That's important. I agree that that's important. But let me ask you this. What does a young person do if they're not sure what they want? Which way they want their career to go?
that's a great question. One of the things, and I just had this conversation, people do have an interest in something. Find out what interests you. If you really don't know what career direction, what you should pursue, find out what you have an interest in and what excites you.
No, you're right.
And go for that. There are opportunities, there are jobs, there may be jobs that's similar to something or that'll be able to let you be able to utilize your skills and abilities in that interest to be able to find employment. Also, some of the jobs of tomorrow may not even exist today. So you may have an interest in something and there may not be an industry or jobs out here today for that, for young people, but tomorrow there may be. I mean, we think about when I came out of school, there's no such thing called social media. That was a big thing. There were career opportunities. So the first thing, if you really don't know what you want to do, what are you interested in? Ask yourself, what are you interested in? And then start to look at what exists out there in this environment where you can pursue your interests and still make money. Because just at the end of the day, you still have to pay bills. But what can you make money doing? That's doing what you have an interest in.
Well, you touched on something that I think is important. One of the things that people looking for jobs today must do is to conduct research into the industry that they want to work in, into the type of jobs that exist today that they are interested in, and see if they can find out what the projection is for the long-term life of that job and whether it's something that's going to be around. And if it is, then go for it. If it isn't, can you still go for it, but have a backup plan? Is there something else you can do while you're doing that? I advocate multiple income streams. When one dries up, hopefully the remaining one or two are still flowing. But I think people, to your point, because everything is in flux, things, as I said, employment is changing. And it changes. Sometimes areas change subtly, sometimes they change more dramatically and more rapidly, but it's change. So you have to stay ahead. You have to try to stay ahead of the curve. And the other thing you mentioned is joining organizations in your area of interest so that you can keep up and you can network.
Exactly. I would say I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the National Society of Black Engineers having their conference in New York City and me being a part of that and going to that and then being able to network out. They actually had a job here then and being able to, find people I worked with before and talk with them and find out that the opportunity existed somewhere else. So it's definitely important to get out there and find those either through volunteerism
Yes.
or those professional networks that's out there, because that'll also help lead you into being able to find something that suits your interests.
You're absolutely right. Volunteering is a good way to network, a good way to meet people that you might not otherwise meet, to be exposed to discussions and situations that you might not otherwise be exposed to. And a lot of times people don't think of volunteering as being helpful in a job search because they're not getting paid and they need money. I mean, they need an income. That's why they're looking for work. But it opens doors. It can open doors.
Yes, and also it to build your skill sets.
Yes.
As you're working through that, it helps you also be able to build your capabilities and build your skills.
Well, as I said earlier, the verbal and written skills need honing. They need fine tuning. You need to be comfortable in your own skin and make yourself comfortable in situations that perhaps before you started looking for a job, you wouldn't have been comfortable in. But you'll meet people who can open doors for you, and you want to be able to put your best foot forward so that they say, yeah, I like the way that person spoke to me. I liked how he or she expressed himself. Maybe I can open a door for her or him. You know what I mean? And it happens as simply as that.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So now let's focus on career growth. Please give the listeners an idea of a few of the roles that you've had during your government employment and how you transition through each one of them. Because transitioning from role to role isn't always that easy to do.
You're right. In short, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down, each role down. I'll call it 3 levels of problem solving.
Okay.
Okay, because we all have to, they solve problems, either for people, business problems, solve problems for people, solve problems for our community. And the three, and then I'll talk about how the parallel career paths fit into each of the 3 levels of problem solving. So the first thing is execution. With execution, usually the solution of the problem is given to us to be able to carry out and implement. This is where more of the technical skills are used, and this is generally the first thing that people do when they enter a career, either out of school or if you're transitioning to a new career. That first level is just execution. You're working on your technical skills to carry out a solution someone already given. The second one, or the next one, is you're given part of a problem to solve. We solve that problem, and then we execute. And then finally, the third one, we're giving a situation, and we have to identify what the problem is, solve the problem, and then execute that problem. This is more strategic, challenging, and more difficult. But generally, that's Rob, as we can throughout your career, as you become more experienced in your career. That third set of you have to identify the problem. That's where you now start to work on that level. So now let me just talk about the 2 career paths, which is my civilian and the military. So first, as a DoD civilian, I worked at the first problem set. Right? I was a structural engineer, just designing parts of the problem that was given to me, whether it be building foundation or beams that keep the building up. And at that point in my career, I was using 90% of my technical skills. Later on, I was promoted to a more senior position where I was a senior engineer. In that role, then I had to identify the problem. I had to solve the problem, then execute the problem, carrying out the design. And at that point in my career, I would say about 60 to 70% of my technical skills, but about 30 to 40% of my soft skills, that communication piece that you mentioned earlier, which is important with writing, because I was working in a team environment. And today, I would tell people, you got to be able to work well with others, and the soft skills are becoming actually very important, because everything today is accomplished in teams. Very few people bring something on their own. You have to be able to work with others and communicate with others.
Yes. And a communicator and a collaborator.
Oh, yes. Got to be able to work, as I used to say, you got to be able to work well in the sandbox.
Yes.
After about 10 years as a structural engineer, I made the transition to project management, where I spent about 3 years there. And that was, again, I would say at least about 50% of my soft skills there, because that is where you work with a team across different stakeholders and across different disciplines. After about 3 years, then I was promoted into a program management position, where I was responsible for supervising other project managers, a position I was in for about 12 years. At that point in my career, I was managing the construction budget. The highest one was about $1.3 billion. Eventually, I took a job at the Pentagon because, again, the opportunity presented itself as a challenge to lead the design build construction management group of about 100 people. And I did that for about 4 years, eventually returning back to New Jersey to work in my current position as a military construction program manager. My parallel career, that is the Army Reserve. During that, I commanded organizations at the Company Detachment Battalion, and I'm soon to take over a group which is the brigade level command. Being a commander in the Army is similar to being a CEO of a company, where you're responsible for providing vision for that organization, setting the goals, and coming up with a plan. Ensure that that plan is executed by all the members of the organization. All those positions in the Army Reserve, as I took on more responsibility, provide me an opportunity to exercise leadership at I would say increasing levels of responsibility.
Wow. I tell you, you've had a busy time, haven't you?
Yes, and during that time, I guess one of the benefits, it also allowed me the opportunity to travel around the world and work with a lot of different people and a lot of different cultures.
That's important. I mean, this, especially in this expansive global world that we live in, we're not the only pebble on the beach. There are many pebbles on the beach, and everybody, as I said before, brings something to the table. I personally have benefited from working with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different viewpoints. I mean, viewpoints, having a different viewpoint these days is a challenge. I like to try to keep an open mind so that I can learn. But it sounds like you've done the same.
Well, you have to be able to accomplish whatever mission you set out because it's, for example, I'll give an example. 2012, I was an active duty in Afghanistan, and I was assigned to NATO. I was responsible for the infrastructure engineering projects to support the Afghan National Army Police. My team, so I had a one officer from Denmark, different services. I had to work with logistics officer soldiers from Great Britain. Contractors were all Afghan. And we had security people from Denmark. They were also from Denmark. And so you figure all those different cultures, right? To be able to, we're all working towards the same goal. People work at different paces.
Yes.
Communication, you got work with the interpreters, right? You got to be able to pick your words. The different words have different meanings. And you pick your words. Choice of words is important. Being able to talk at a pace where others understand. And just being respectful of other people.
Yes.
I mean, and that's
Respect is important.
yeah. And especially if you're in somebody else's country, respectful of
Yes.
their country because you're there as a guest.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so that carries over. Now we bring it back to the U.S. You have a lot of different people here. You're on the team again. You're going to work in a team environment. How do you listen to everybody's opinion and being able to? You may not agree with it, but you have but being respectful so that you can at least hear them out and then be able to form your own opinion or your own argument. That's respectful of their position. But for sure, hey, I don't agree with it. Here's the reason.
Right. No, you have to give people the opportunity to be heard.
Yes.
And listen respectfully. Respect is critical wherever you are. If you're a respectful person, you can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong. Even if you're in an unfamiliar country or an unfamiliar situation, if you're a respectful person, you should fare okay.
Usually what I find is that in other countries, the people that their English is usually better than my
Yes.
than my ability to speak their language. So
I know you're right. But they're so patient I noticed they've been patient when I tried to converse with them in their language. They smile, but I can get some of the words out right. But I don't know whether they appreciate the effort or not. That I always found people to be very gracious and willing to help me. Rodney, you said something when we spoke previously. You said that some people rise to the top and some don't. And I have a feeling that your experience in both the private sector and the government, I'm sure there's some overlap there. Before we close, would you share with the listeners some of the things that you feel are critical to people being able to move up in organizations, whether they're governmental or non-governmental?
Yes, I have about 11 insights I'd like to share. And
Sure.
this doesn't apply to any type of organization. These are just things I've learned uh, over my almost 3 decades. The first thing I would say is to the listeners is values. You have to have core values of how you're going to conduct your behaviors during your career. Your integrity is very important. And remember that no one can take it from you. You have to give it away. So first thing is you got to have a value system. I recommend that to anybody. So what do you value? What's going to be your core principles? Because let me tell you, as you go through your career, it's going to get tested. It's going to get tested. Second thing is next is change. Throughout your career and life journey, expect change to be constant. The environment is always changing, and we have to be adaptable to that change. Even me now, I have to be adaptable to change. Uh, One of the books I recommend reading is, I'm a big reader, so I'm going to have a couple of recommendations. One of the books I recommend reading is Who Moved My Cheese by
Oh,
Spencer Johnson, on dealing with change. Next thing is life is not fair. Okay? There's a saying, sometimes the dragon wins. Things may not always go your way. Get over it, learn from the lesson, and keep moving. Book I recommend reading is Benjamin O. Davis Jr. autobiography. It's called Benjamin O. Davis Jr. American, an autobiography. It's an excellent book on how to achieve your goals despite of oppression and circumstance. Just recently, West Point, United States Military Academy at West Point named the barracks after him. And for those who aren't aware, he was the first African American to graduate from West Point in the 20th century. And went on to do great things for the army. Read. You got to be reading. That helps you stay relevant in your career. It just helps you stay relevant in whatever it is you're pursuing. Former Secretary of Defense James Mattis was a big one. I would also recommend this book. Another book on careers, as we're talking now, just in the podcast about careers, is it's Colin Powell's My American Journey. That's an excellent book about how he pursued his career. But here's someone who went to City College in New York to rise to the highest level in the military, which was typically the chairman and joint chief of staff was typically people who went to West Point for him to be able to be able to achieve that. It was just remarkable. Mistakes, you're going to make them, but the key thing is to own up to them, treat them as teachable moments, and then learn from them. Enough career growth, take on the tough assignments. If that's the only way you grow and develop your capabilities. But while you're doing that, you have to also do your homework. Just like school, you're getting homework at the end of the day. Same thing with a career. All the problems you're going to encounter at work, the assignments you're not going to be able to work on that work. You got to be able to do that. Then make forward progress every day. I call it moving the peanut forward. I don't know where I got that term from. I borrowed it from somebody by the last 15 some odd years. But every day, make progress. And this is important. Compass with the jobs, compensation, and that one more. Compensation and the perks that come that you receive at a job is not because the compensation we receive at our jobs, not because we're so, but it's rather that's what the role requires. And I like to kind of give an example of that. In my last role, I was down at the Pentagon. I lost staff. I come in, my admin assistant would do my daily calendar. I would pick up the calendar and kind of go. I went to go somewhere, I had drivers trying to take me driving somewhere. All of that is not because I'm great. all came with the role. My new role, I don't have any of that because that doesn't, because those perks don't follow you with with your roles. And so it's important for people to remember that things you receive from a job is not because of you. That's what the role requires. And the last thing I'm going to add is just save your money for a rainy day because it is going to rain, as we can see right now. But those are my insights from my almost 2 decades of working with things that I've been a pass on to your listeners.
Well, Rodney, thank you for sharing that. I mean, hopefully people will take notes.
I know it's a little long.
That's sound advice. That's sound advice based on experience. That way, people don't have to accept or take advice, but they should consider it and accept or reject it.
Right.
And if they reject it, they may come back to it at another time.
Yeah. It's my opinion. I always tell people when I guess it's out there. Use it, don't use it, don't use it. It's free. Don't. But the reading, the last thing, just the reading. If you really, everything you need to know, somebody's kind of went through it already. And what books provide don't give you the answer, but it gives you a framework or something to work off of, something to consider. It's something where you can kind of framework for your mind to be able to think through.
Yeah.
Everything you want to go through, somebody's already went through it, taking the time out to put it in a book. I guess the last thing you want to be successful, more time reading and less time worrying about who got thrown off the island, who the bachelor's going to pick up marriage.
People have to have some lightheartedness in their lives, and some people love The Bachelor. I've never seen it.
You got to have an outlet. I agree with that. Mine was the Game of Thrones.
Oh, I loved it.
So I do agree, but got to find one. But when that becomes your whole life and everything else, that's
well, Rodney. The next time we talk, we're gonna have to talk about the Game of Thrones. That was one of my favorites.
Actually, you could pick up some good leadership lessons from it. Also, I used to tell you.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. But it was the dragons that got me when they broke out of the shell and they. I was like, okay, they got me. I'm in for the long haul. Okay. I knew that was it. But thank you so much, Rodney, for taking the time and for sharing your knowledge and experience and expertise. I know that this will be helpful to so many people, especially during these trying times, because I think that, especially with the high unemployment numbers, people are going to be looking for cost-effective information that can help them move forward on their employment journey. And you've provided that today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Brother. Thank you for having me on the podcast. And to all your listeners, good luck with your career journeys.
Thanks for listening to Your Employment Matters with Beverly Williams. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. I truly appreciate your support, and that helps other listeners find the podcast. If you have a comment, question, or suggestion, you can reach me at bawilliams@youremploymentmatters.com. My book, Get the Job Done, is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Please join me again next week. Until then, remember to embrace change and differences.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.